Hello there, it's the Archivist from TradingCardArchives.com, and I'm here today to record something pretty special, but it might also be a little weird. I don't know. Let me know if you like it or not. But basically, what we're going to do is I'm going to show off a project that I've worked on for basically my entire life. So this is Decipher's Star Wars CCG, my lifelong obsession. Now, a lot of people think, maybe I'm obsessed with trading cards. I'm maybe a little crazy about those, but you don't even know. You haven't even, you have no idea what obsession is. I'm going to show you things today that are just going to blow your mind. Trust me. Okay, so this is a game, a trading card game. They call these TCGs today, but back in 1995 when this came out, so 30 years ago now, this was a customizable card game. The company that made this is Decipher, and they're no longer around anymore. But they made a couple of very interesting games back then. They made like an awesome Lord of the Rings game, which has great support through the today as well. But I was not interested in that. I didn't play that one. But I was very interested in Star Wars, and so I played a lot of this. Back when I was a kid, I had a ton of these cards, physical cards. But when I went to college, I ended up selling almost all of those. And I never really ended up buying any more because there's such a great digital adaptation of this game that I just didn't really feel like I needed physical cards any longer. But I do have a few products here, so I was going to show these to you first, and then we'll move on to other things. This video is going to go places. Just wait. But here's some. This is the third anthology. This was kind of like a special collection that Decipher put out. This has a list of cards in it, a very small version of the rule book. This game's actual rule book is about 200 pages long. It's massive. This is a more like a better version of the rule book, although still not quite as big as the one that really exists these days. And then these are some actual real Star Wars CCG cards. So the game you played, there was a light side and a dark side, and you had to build a deck, depending on what you wanted to be. So there always had to be a dark side player and a light side player, just like kind of in the movies, right? And so you would build a light side deck or a dark side deck and then play against your friends. And there are cards for everything. The game has had about 14 real expansions, a lot of special editions like this, a lot of like promo cards that were handed out at events and tournaments. It had great tournament support back in the day. I'll just kind of show you some of these cards here. But they're great looking cards, right? Even now, almost 30 years old, these look awesome, right? Uh, the game has land battles, space battles. There's locations. There's every single character you could think of, and the coolest thing about the game is it really didn't have any limits. Now there are rules, of course, they have to follow, but for example, there was a card that would make any character a warrior. So you could turn, R2D2 into a warrior, give him a gun, right? It was something, I don't know if that was actually possible, but anyway, there's cards that would make people pilots. So you could make an Ewok a pilot and then have the Ewok fly the Millennium Falcon or something, right? Like you could do that. You could take the Ewok and turn it into a spy and also be a pilot and have it steal an unmanned Star Destroyer. And now there's an Ewok flying a Star Destroyer around. All sorts of stuff like that. It had epic events. For example, the Death Star could blow up planets, which would kill everyone on the planet, of course. It would like destroy that whole part of the board, which was a very difficult thing to actually do in games. But I have an example of that I'll show you right at the end of this video. But this is kind of how the game worked. Is there's these locations that you play in the middle of the table, and then you put your characters at those locations to battle. So I would have like this location down, and then I could put this character here, and you'd have your characters on that side, and we could have a battle at that location, or whatever's going on. You could move around. Characters could get into ships, get out of ships. You could take an X-wing and land it in the desert, pick up somebody, fly off, and then use hyperspace to go to a different planet, land in on Hoth or something, and let them out, right? So all of that was sort of possible in the game, and it really made it pretty special. But what makes it even more special is that it's not a dead game yet. It's still going. So even though Decipher stopped publishing cards for this game, oh gosh, maybe 20 years ago, or maybe even longer than that, there's a players committee which has been allowed to keep the game going. And it's not some illicit thing. They have explicit permission from LucasArts, Lucasfilm, and Disney now to continue running the game as long as they don't produce any cards that infringe on Disney copyright. So they have to use cosplayers and computer graphics to make their new cards, but they're allowed to do that. So the game has continued to evolve and is maintained through today. This is another deck I have. I only have a couple like complete decks. This is one of them, but this one's interesting because it's not the actual cards from the game. These are all alternate art versions of the cards. Like that card does not look like that on the Decipher in the Decipher game. Some friends of mine made their own custom cards and we printed them out. So they have the same rules as the real card, but they have sort of an alternate artwork on it. And I had these printed by a company in China. The only trick is they won't print the word Star Wars on them. So they'll print the card exactly like it, breaking all the copyrights, but they won't actually print the word Star Wars on the back. So if you want to get these printed, you have to not print that. But you can see there's some very beautiful artwork in here. And, characters had power, they had a deploy cost. It's just kind of like Magic the Gathering. You have to do certain things to get cards onto the board, things like that. These are all, again, all custom cards here. So, okay, so I showed you all that. Now I want to show you sort of where this game has gone since then, because this is old. This is from, 1998 or something. I want to show you where this game has gone since then. So let's move over to the other screen. And the first thing I want to show you is this is an advertisement. So this ad appeared in many magazines. I saw it in PC Gamer when I was very young, and it's kind of what sold me on the game. And this ad has always sort of been my model, my vision for what this game should be, right? The stormtrooper there is actually shooting a laser, right? And there's like an explosion on the card, right? As a kid, you make the sounds and you imagine that's happening, but you can't really see it happen, right? And so since I started playing this game when I was 12, 13 years old or something, I've always wanted to create a version of the game that looks like this ad, and I have done that now. And so that's kind of what I'm going to show you here, but we're going to start with the player committee website. So this is the website. It's I'll put links to all this in the video description too. Anyone who plays the game knows about this, but this is the player committee. They are a group of just people. Like, I know a lot of them. I'm actually in the committee myself as a developer because I work on the game as a programmer. Not paid, it's all volunteer work. But yeah, they run this game and they keep making more cards for it. And so the game has over 3,000 cards now, including cards from all the newest TV shows and movies. So there are cards from all three of the new movies, even though Decipher went out of business long before those movies were created. But on this website, you can get the rule book, the full 200-page rule book if you want. It's really big, and I don't recommend reading it all. It's much easier to learn to play this game online than it is to just read it. There's demo decks, all sorts of interesting resources here, a great forum and a Discord server that's always has people on it. But the main thing that the player committee does is they run the digital version of the game. And so I'll show you that now. That's this screen. It's called GEMP, or some people pronounce it GEMP, sort of like GIF and GIF, right? No one knows if that's supposed to be a hard G or a soft G. But this word GEMP is a sort of generic card game server. And there's two main versions of it in operation. There's GEMP Lord of the Rings that plays the Lord of the Rings game, and it's very well developed and supported. I just don't play that one. And then there's this one, which is GEMP Star Wars CCG. And this is the official players server. And so you can see right now there's 42 people online. In the last 24 hours, they've had 226 games played. Right, so there's a game playing. You can sign into this at 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. There'll always be people there playing this game. I think it says over here they've had over, what, 500,000 games played since the server began operation, right? So this server that they run allows you to play the game online with other players. I'll log in now so you can sort of see what that looks like. Now it it's a website, and it's a very like kind of classic website in the sense that you like load pages, and it calls JavaScript, and it updates things, and it renders images. But it's very like, I don't know how to describe this, like website. I mean, you can see it for yourself here. It's very flat. It looks old, and that's because it is. GEMP was created almost 15 years ago by an engineer named Tibesti, who doesn't work on it anymore, but he handed the source code to the players committee, and they maintain it now. This is a fully open source project as well. You can go onto GitHub, download this source code, and run this server yourself if you want. And in fact, I do that. I have a parallel version of this server that I run myself that we'll look at in a minute here on the video. But for now, this is the real server. And so you can see there's what, like 6 games playing. Some of these games are private, so we can't watch them, but some are not private, and we can go in and watch them. And so now I'm in this game, and I'm watching it be played. And so you can see the locations here. You can see that there's some characters at the locations, and basically the power number up here is sort of how powerful those characters are at those locations. These blue locations are interesting because they're actually in spaceships. So you can have like the Death Star docking bay as a location. You can land the Millennium Falcon in there, let Luke off, and do like you can do the whole movie, right? You can play it all with these cards. But if you don't know how to use this application, it looks very flat. You can't really read any of these cards. You kind of have to know what they are. And so everyone who's playing using this client, this is the official client, it knows all these cards already, right? So they can just see the image and they know what it does, or they'll look it up online in a different program called ScompLink. You can get large versions of the cards if you need them by shift-clicking one. So if I shift-click that, you'll see a larger version of it, and I can kind of read what it does. And so that's like a way to sort of understand what is going on here. Oh, this character is a spy. So even though that's a light card, they were able to go over to the dark side of the table up here because they're a spy. Anyway, and there's a chat here, there's options, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so that's watching the game in the classic client. But I want to now show you what I made. Here it is. So this is, I call this GEMP Arena. The players committee calls this Epic Duel. So if you've played on the GEMP server in the last couple of years, you probably have heard of Epic Duel. They use it in all of their Twitch streams of games because it just looks a lot better than the regular client. That's not a knock on the real client. Like, the real client is amazing, and the fact that it exists at all is incredible. And I was only able to build my version of the client because all that existed, right? If that didn't exist, I would never have been able to build what I built on top of it, right? So my client is, you can think of it sort of as like a skin over what you just saw. And it's a Unity project. So what you're looking at here is Unity, and these are all the sort of objects that are in this scene. There's only one scene that the whole game takes up. There's all these different menus and things. It was a long project. Like I said, I've been working on this basically my entire life. But let's run it so that you can kind of get an idea of what a modern take on the Star Wars CCG client would be. And so here is, this is Epic Duel now running. It's a WebGL program. So I'm running it inside Unity right now, but it's deployed on the GEMP server. And I'll show you how that works in a second. You load it in a browser. So you can just load it in Chrome or Safari or whatever browser you're using and just play it there, even though it is very graphically intense. But Unity allows us to do that. And if you notice, the statistics down here are a lot smaller. This is because I'm currently hooked up to my development server. So like I said, I have a copy of the server that I run, and that's what I'm plugged into here so that we can do some things without the other players sort of getting in the way, right? So I'm going to go ahead and log in now to my development server. There's nobody else here. It's just me. Sometimes some people might come in here and play once in a while, but it's pretty rare. But right now it's just me, and I'll show you first the merchant. So the merchant is kind of like a card browser, but also a way to buy cards for your collection. So on this server, you have cards that you own. You can build a deck with any cards you want and play, but if you want foil versions of the cards, you have to kind of trade those and buy them. And so this server has like a full trading system and buying system. You can see there's 174 pages of cards at that size. If we put 60 cards on a page, there's still 60 pages of cards. And so these are kind of all of those cards. Some of them have two sides, so you can flip them over, right? And then this is a Star Destroyer, right? So there's Star Destroyers. We've got, you can do all kinds of searches in here, so we can look for all the Jawa cards like that, or we can, look for all the cards that have Trooper in the name, like that, and we'll get all those. And so again, this is just kind of a way to sort of browse and see all the cards, but you can see I've got it there so that you can just read the text very clearly, right? You don't have to read the card text. I have it all kind of extracted so you can just read it. So that's the merchant. There's a full deck building system. So this is one of the decks. This is like an attack run deck right here. And so I can, remove that card from the deck and add that card to the deck, for example. And then that deck is no longer valid because I put a dark side card in it. But if I put another light side card in, now the deck is valid, right? So I can do that. I'm going to abandon those changes. These are kind of all the decks that I have. There's stats, there's a collection. So I know the reason I made this video actually is I was inspired. Someone had a comment for me to open some Star Wars CCG product. And the thing is, this product is very expensive. It's another reason I don't own any. The packs alone can be over $100, boxes thousands of dollars. But on the server, it's all free. So on the server here, I have a bunch of packs that I bought on my server, and I can open them, right? And so there's me opening a Dagobah pack. And actually, that was a very creature-heavy pack. I got the Space Slug and a Minoc and a bunch of creatures and one of the Dagobah landing and the Dagobah system itself. So systems are where starships can fight, and this is where regular guys can fight. But we also can open some of the special packs that came out later on. So this is a Reflections pack. This came out very late in the product's lifeline, right before Decipher went defunct, and it features some incredibly powerful cards, a lot of foil cards that you can pull from those packs. Let's open another Reflections 2-pack here. We got a good turbo laser battery. We got a nice Ewok there, and one of those transport ships they used to get off Hoth. All that is in the game, so you can use all of it, right? Now, with a client like this, it's one thing we have to think about is like, how do you test it, right? There's over 3,000 cards, tons and tons of different possible actions and things. I can kind of show you how that looks in the code. Because it's a Unity project, the code is C# code. And this is also open source. So if you want access to this to compile it yourself, if you are a Unity dev and you think you can do that, let me know and I can send you a link to the repo and show you kind of how to set it up. If you're not already a Unity dev, I wouldn't try. It's a very complicated thing to learn. But if you know how to use Unity, it's very easy to load and run this project in Unity or build it for yourself. But here's like all the different events that come back from the server. There's a participant, there's, a game phase. All these different sort of codes mean something to the server, and the client has to parse and read them all. We have a reveal event, activate, rotate. So if a card's going to rotate on the table, the server sends me a row CIP, which means rotate card in play. And if I get that event, I know I need to rotate one of the cards that's on the table. And so all the things that the server can send me are here, including battles, everything. And so this code will go through and parse out all that stuff and basically build the model of the game that it can then render. And so that's some of the source code there for you, in case you're interested in that. But how do you test it all, right? And so the way we test this is actually using a bot. And so I didn't want to make some poor other developer play, hundreds of games against me while I'm debugging, because I need to be able to pause those games. I need to be able to replay parts over and over again until I get the code just right. So I made a bot that'll do that for me, and I call that bot Rando Cal, which is kind of a play on the Lando Calrissian name, right? So he's Rando Calrissian, basically, because he sort of started out as just taking random actions, although he's much smarter now than that. But it's not an LLM, because again, this was coded before those really came into their own. He's a rules engine. And so the way it works is basically the server sends to the bot some actions, and the bot will rank all those actions using the game state. It'll say, well, that action is a really good idea because I think I can win this battle if I do it. Or this action is a really bad idea because I'm gonna, lose a bunch of force if I deploy there, right? And so he'll rank all the all the actions and then take the best action from that list. Or if there's a bunch of equal actions, he'll just randomly take one. And so there's some configuration for him, but Rando is just a regular player, really. When to the server can't tell the difference between Rando and a regular player. He plays just like anyone else. So I'm going to go ahead and have Rando create a table for me. And then I'm going to go back over to my client, and you can see now that the droid table is up with the Jawa deck. And so I need a light, that's a light side, so I need a dark side deck. And since that's a Jawa deck, why don't we do Java's court against it? Oh, wait, that's not a good one. Oh, it's a dark Jawa deck. Okay, geez. Okay, so let's do light. Light Hitco will work. Oh, I don't have enough deck. I don't have course. Sorry. Let me find a deck that actually works here. How about Profit? Okay, so now we're in the game, and at this point, I'm playing a game against Rando, and so you can start to see how my client works. You make choices. Now it's asking me, do I want to put the moisture farm to the left or to the right of Java's palace? And so I'm going to put it to the right, and then I have to pick someone to be frozen in the palace, because the deck I'm playing is centered around the idea of Han being frozen in carbonite. So I'm going to freeze Han. So Han is now frozen in carbonite there, and I have to go and rescue him. That's sort of the idea of my deck. And you can see we have some interesting artwork in here. So I didn't do all the art myself. I did all the coding, but I actually had a lot of help from some artists in the community creating these controls that you see on the sides of the screen here. And I'll move that in so you can see it a little better. There we go. And let me move the other side in. So there you can see sort of how many cards are in the other person's hand. And these are the cards in my hand. And so I can just kind of hover over them and get a large version with the rules. Also, because Rando is a bot, he'll talk to you. So Rando sends you chat messages throughout the game. He's got a personality sort of like K2SO from Rogue One. So he's kind of a sarcastic robot. You can see whenever you're playing against Rando Cal, it puts his avatar here too, so you know you're playing against a bot. This board in the background too is provided by community artists, and there's actually a bunch of them that you can pick, and you'll see they all look really cool back there. And then the game is just kind of rendered like this. There's choices. You can go in here and you can say, oh, I want to have all my cards flat so I can see them better. I can do that. I use the click only UI, which means I just have to click. There's no dragging, but I can turn that off. And then I will actually be dragging cards now onto the table, just like sort of a modern, like Magic the Gathering game or something, that arena client. It'll look just like that. I'm going to let Rando play his turn here. So Rando is putting a weapon on the Tusken Raider. He's putting two weapons on the Tusken Raider. I'm going to load that guy up. And Now I'm going to activate my force for my turn. I don't have any control actions. And now I can deploy. And so I can actually deploy this on the table, and you'll see it makes a new section for it for home 1, because that's the home 1 docking bay. And we have a section for Tatooine here. And then why don't we go ahead and put Luke onto there. I'm going to switch it back to the click-only UI. It's a little bit easier to use. But there's tons of options. There's, graphics options in case your computer isn't quite as powerful, because this is a fully 3D display of the game. And I can actually prove that because I can detach the camera and zoom into the board. And then I can turn it, right? So you can see that this is a fully 3D rendering of the game. And I can zoom in on a card, and you can actually read the cards on the table. Let's reattach the camera. And then I want to show you what Rando sees, because this is what I see when I'm playing, but Rando has a completely different view of the game. He doesn't have any graphics. His body doesn't need it. So instead, he has this kind of text-only view of the game, but he understands different things about where stuff is deployed, who has weapons. So he knows that this Tusken has these 2 weapons. He knows Master Luke is here with a power of 4. So Rando right now knows he has a lot more power than me at this location. And so I suspect Rando will start a battle with me if I continue to play here. So I'm just going to go through that turn. And usually we run Rando Cal on the live server for people to play against for fun, because it is kind of fun to play against him. But he's also great because you can go back in time in this game. You can rewind like this. I can revert and say I want to go back to the start of that turn. And another player usually won't let you do that because it's kind of like cheating, right? Because you can look at what you're going to draw and then revert back to before you drew it and make a different choice, right? So most players won't let you do that, but Rando always allows it. And so you can always revert as many times as you want, and you can stop for as long as you want to debug or whatever you need to do to think about it, which is, I think, really helpful for new players and for developers who are working on it. And so now Rando basically sees a chance to fight me here. And so he's going to deploy probably, more weapons, lots of weapons. And I don't know if he might not have enough cards. He might not have enough cards to actually do a battle this turn. Oh, there you go. So he's got it equal now, 6 and 6. Oh, and he's going to do it. Okay, so so he went ahead and started this battle. And so you see that the frozen Han, because he's frozen in carbonite, he can't participate in the battle. So he gets moved to the side. The area where the battle is gets bigger. Everything else on the table gets smaller, and you can kind of focus on this now. So we're resolving the battle with these destiny. If you know how to play the game, you understand what's going on. I don't mean to want to try and teach you how to play the game right now. It's more about showing you this client. Although I can tell you, when you log into this, you really can't make a mistake, because you see how it's highlighted in green. The things, that's something you can do. You can't do anything with these cards anyway. So whenever there's a choice or a thing you can do, it'll be highlighted in green. It's like very easy to just sort of read what you need to do and sort of pick up the game as you go, right? And so that's a battle in the Star Wars CCG game. So I'm going to go ahead and concede this to Rando. We'll let him win. Let the robots win, I guess. And as soon as I conceded, you see Rando went ahead and started a new table with his ties deck. He has as many decks as he wants, and he can even build decks too. So If you want to play against completely unique, crazy things, you can have him do that. But what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to switch this client over to the live server and show you how that works. So to do that, we have to go into the code. Again, I'm just like proving that this is a real thing, right? This isn't some joke, right? This is real. So we're going to use the production GEMP and the production image server. Okay, it's rebuilt that. Then I'm going to log in. I'm actually going to log in as Rando Cal because what I want to do is I want to show you a replay of a game that Rando played a couple days ago against a real player, where that real player used the Death Star to blow up a planet, which is something that's really hard to do in the game if you're playing against a human, because the human is going to try and stop you all the time, right? Rando doesn't really try to stop you at all, right? He'll play, but he lets you do things, right? And that's so that I can test better. And so Rando will let you use the Death Star to blow things up. And so it can be kind of fun to play against him because you can use mechanics in the game that you never would get a chance to otherwise. So here I am. I'm on the live server now. You can see all the real players are here. There's chat messages, of course, tons of tables. We could join it. We could go watch any of these, and you could see sort of how that gets rendered. So there, we just joined into this game. And since I'm watching, I can't see the cards that are in either player's hand, right? Those are hidden from me because I'm watching. But there you see how a battle goes. And yep, so the opponent conceded there. So we'll go out. And now what I want to show you though is the history. And so Rando has played hundreds of games. You can see each of these pages has, you know, what, 20 entries? There's 145 pages. So yeah, Rando has played, I guess, thousands of games against players at this point. But I want to show you one that happened a couple days ago against this person, Lauren29. And we're going to watch that game. And so this is a replay, which just means that we're basically like, we can watch it at any speed. We're going to watch the game happen again, but it's kind of sped up, right? And so you can see, it goes really fast. Let's pause, go one more, pause here. Okay, so we'll pause right there, and you can see that Lauren has the Death Star on the table. He's even has a foil version of the Death Star, right? He's playing against Rando, so Rando's on the bottom, the light side, and he's got the Death Star here. But what I'm going to do is jump ahead to later in the game when he actually uses it, which happens at this point. You'll see it has to catch up to get there, but now he's got the super laser on the Death Star, and he is going to fire that super laser at Alderaan. And so here he goes. And there, isn't that cool? It actually blows the card up. It's like the funnest thing. And so there are tons of effects like that. If a card shoots a gun at another player, there's a laser blast, and then the card will get like a little explosion. If it's like a bullet type weapon, they'll get little bullet marks. Ships will get torn into pieces and blown up. The lightsabers will actually cut cards in half with like a real lightsaber effect that someone gave me. So there are tons and tons of cool effects like that kind of hidden in the game. But again, we're just watching a replay here. So what I'm going to do is exit from that, log out of here, and then we're almost done with this video now. I just want to show you kind of, you know, one more thing, right? And so that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to go back to my server because what I'm about to show you only works on my server. Yeah, anyway, I don't want to spoil it, but you can't do this on the live server, so don't try. But this client has like a whole other level of artwork in it. So beyond the regular art that comes with the game, there's a bunch of like extra collections that come from players out in the community who have created these. And so there's a secret code that you can enter while you're in this client on your keyboard. I'm not going to tell you the code, but if you enter it correctly, this menu will appear. And this menu is the alternate image menu. And these are not endorsed by the PC. I have to be very clear about that. The player committee is not allowed to use images like I'm going to show you. But I am on my server, right? Because I'm a private person. I don't represent the player committee when I'm doing this. And so in here we have tons and tons of alternate artwork. And so if you want, you can play with this full art Darth Vader. Now it has the same rules as the regular Darth Vader, but it's a full art version. Or we can go and get like a full art Luke Skywalker, or you can get the Luke from The Mandalorian, right? You can get, here's a full art Yoda, very cool. But there's more than just full art. There's also high res images. So these are all high resolution versions of the cards that were rescanned by another player. And so you can use those if you'd like in the game. When you're using these alternate images, they only show up for you, not for the other player. So it's kind of like, you know, it's just for you. But it is fun. There's also, though, comic book artwork and foreign languages. So this is the Japanese version of this card that you can use. Or if we go over here, let's see, I'm trying to find. So this is Vigo, that's Jabba's assistant. So that's what he looks like in the movies, but in the comics, he's drawn like that. So we have a comic version of the card that you can use. So this is a comic version of the Blizzard 2 Walker. From the comic books, right? Pretty interesting, I would say. There's more. We can use these are the original prototype cards. So when Decipher was designing the game, before it was even announced to the public, they used cards that looked like this. And they took these cards to some of the conferences to promote the game before they had real cards. So that's what the real Stormtrooper card ended up looking like. This is what the prototype looks like. And so you can actually play the game using the prototype cards if you want, including, you know, things like the Death Star, right? Such a crazy thing, right? But I just wanted to show you that because I think it's another kind of cool aspect of this client and something that you can't do on the regular server. All right, so yeah, with that, I think I'll try and wrap this video up now. So that was kind of my sort of showing off all the things I've done with the Star Wars CCG game. Again, everything you saw there took a very long time to create and was really built on the shoulders of giants. Like Tibesti created the GEMP server. Without his work, nothing I did would be possible. The player committee is the one who keeps the game going. They keep players playing it. They run tournaments, make new cards. They're the reason that we have a game to play even now. So props to them. They run the real GEMP server. And then also a lot of community people from the community contributed artwork and design work to the client that I just showed you. So although I did all the programming in there and implemented all of their ideas, the fact that that lightsaber cutting effect was given to me by another artist. I didn't make that effect. And so it's important to understand that there's like a lot of people contributing to this project. I just get to show it off because I'm the developer. And then finally, it is fully open source. So if you are a Unity developer and you want to run this yourself or make changes to it or improve it or help me code it, I'm always looking for people to help. I don't currently have anyone helping me because I guess there aren't a lot of Unity developers with spare time, which makes sense. Typically, if you're a Unity developer, you work in the games industry, and when you work in the games industry, you don't have any spare time. So I totally understand that. But if you are someone who would like to participate, let me know. Just get in touch on the website or via email or leave a comment or something. We'll figure it out, and I can get you access to the project and show you how to set it up and everything. Is there anything I forgot to do? I don't think so. I think I've shown you everything now. So yeah, so that is Epic Duel, the Star Wars CCG client, the modern client, right? I showed you the original classic client. That still exists. People use that every day. But the new modern client also exists and can be used alongside, right? You can switch back and forth. You can have one player in the regular client and one player in Epic Duel, and it's totally fine. It works just fine. So it's very like interchangeable in that way. Okay, and that's Star Wars CCG by Decipher, my lifelong obsession. Hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.